Milton Mo Junction. As I mentioned in the last video, what I intend to do in this video, or hope to complete in this video anyway, is the coal yard area, the cobbled bit that I mentioned. Now it's taken me a little bit longer than I thought because A, I haven't really been up here, I've been doing other things, and B, it wasn't quite as simple to do what I was hoping to do as I thought. First off, I had to build and fit the buffer stop up the end. Well, of course, because that's on a join, it was a bit difficult, and it also meant I had to get that fitted first before I put the cobbles there, because I had to see if the cobbles, if the buffer was in the way of the cobbles, which of course it is. So what I've done is I've cut a little, I'm not sure if you can see from this, but I've cut a little section out of the cobbles so that the buffer can fit in it. That's not a problem because all it looks like is I've cut one stone out. So what I shall do on that is just fill it in with coal dust or cinders. I mean, there'll be lots of coal dust on that area anyway. And I intend to do that for the gaps where the cobbles haven't actually, or the granite sets, the sheets of granite sets haven't actually matched up in completely smooth to the next set, basically because they put little lugs on it, and you cut those off, and it's very difficult to be perfectly accurate. So you can probably see that one underneath the, you can't get that any tighter than I show there. But that's not, as I was saying, that's not a problem. Once I've weathered it and painted it, everything, and done everything I intend to do to it, I can fill that in with some powder. The other problem I had was the cobbles didn't come right up to the track. Well, they did, but they were raised up above it because of the track or the rail shoes. So I've cut the shoes off on the far side of that rail, so that allowed the cobbles to come right up to the rail. The problem then was that that rail was effectively loose, so I had to quickly fit the cobbles, glue the cobbles down so it didn't ping out anywhere or go off shape. So that's the stage I'm at the moment. What I've done is what I said earlier I was going to do, was I've the foam board is glued down first of all, then I've cut this card on top, glued that down, and now I've glued the cobbles after trimming them. I've glued the cobbles, the first row of cobbles, down to that, and I had to do that fairly quickly, as I said, because the rail was going to move. So that's where I'm at the moment. You can see all the weights on it, letting it dry, and I probably won't do anything now until that's set. So I'll finish this bit here and come back when I've done a bit more. So see you in a while. Well, I've glued down the plastic cobbles or granite sets, and just going to experiment a bit with what I'm going to do. The granite sets are not particularly laid down that neatly, to be perfectly honest. There are a few reasons for that. One is because my cutting is probably not that accurate and I was in a bit of a rush. The other reason is I wasn't really, to be honest, too bothered, because hopefully you won't notice the different the joins anyway. I mean, the joins are going to be there as such because they are what they are, but I mean, there's a couple at the back here which are about the best you can get. I mean, they're sort of perfect, but even there you can see a slight line. But my thoughts were that it's going to be covered. Well, for a start, it's going to be painted, so it won't look quite so stark. It's going to be painted and weathered anyway, the actual granite blocks themselves. The other main point, and you can see where I've experimented a little bit, once you've got some coal dust filling in the gaps, I don't think it will show at all anyway, but I've just spread a little bit over there. I'll hoover that up before I paint it, but it was a tiny little bit of the granite ballast that I've been using, which I shall substitute for coal dust in this particular area, I expect. And the other thing is, at the back I've cut it very roughly anyway, just using the scraps up, to be honest, because that's sort of, it's going to have a little bit of history, as if that mound has been sort of dumped there on top of them, and there's going to be some back into it. The mound itself will have overgrown in some places, the cobbles, so there's not going to be a smooth edge at the back. And the other reason I want to build some coal stays, or at least possibly not coal stays on this side, might just have the back part of a coal stay, like a wooden barrier that's been erected to stop the coal spreading too much. But I think on this side, so there'll be piles of coal in places along the back anyway, so hopefully when this is all sorted it'll look a lot smarter than it is now. Admittedly, as I say, I didn't take too much care on it because of various reasons, some of which I've explained, but I wanted to get the front ones against the rail glued down fairly quickly, because the rail was a bit loose. But yeah, I'm reasonably pleased with it. I think it'll look a lot better once it's painted and stained, or whatever I'm going to do to it. I'm just going to experiment a bit with the colouring, and we'll see what it looks like after that. So see you in a while. Very quickly, I've just primed it with Halford's grey primer. Unfortunately, I can't really spray it up here. It gets a bit messy, because the spray from a spray can tends to linger and go over everything in the end. So what I've done is I've painted it with an old brush with Halford's primer, grey primer, but out of a tin. It's not particularly as efficient, and I've particularly done it not too heavy, because I don't want all the mortar bits filled in. So I've done it very roughly with a brush, and just to give it a bit of colour. And I'm not too worried, as I say, it looks a little bit patchy, much more than a spray would look, but that's okay, because I want the finish to look a patchy finish anyway. That's a start, so we'll come and see what it's like afterwards. So I'll show you in a bit later, after I've done another coat of another colour. Next stage, I've painted it with a sort of mixture of blue black, two different colours, but mixed them up different shades, different times. Not really sure where I'm going with this, but yeah, it's looking a bit better now. You can't see the gaps so much, and that's the next stage we've got to. So I'm just, as I say, I don't really know where I'm going. I'm just playing. If all goes completely well, I'll have to start again. Wrong, I'll have to start again, but so far so good. See you after the next stage. Okay, next, I've just completed the next stage, and what I've done here is I've made a water and black paint mixture, and used a sponge and dabbed it on, and that's just waiting for that to dry now. So that's the next stage. I mean, what I'm trying to do is that obviously they're granite blocks, which can be blackish anyway. I'm trying to give it a more of a black look. It will go that way with this, the coal that's been used on it anyway, but I'm just trying different things, see what happens. As I said earlier, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm getting there, I think. Pleased with the effect a bit now. You can't see any of the gaps that I had when it was a lighter colour, and that's without coal dust being added. So yeah, it's looking a lot better. I'll come back when I've done a bit more. The next stage, what I've done is I've done a dark black wash over the cobbles. The idea of this, it's still drying at the minute. The idea of this hopefully is that it will give a blacker colour, but it won't sort of fill in everything. It's not like you're painting it, it won't fill in all the mortar, the lighter mortar that's showing through in places, so that it gives a sort of black granite block effect, but not just a massive black. It will you can still see the individual stones. So we'll see what that looks like when it's dried. The other thing I've also done is I've put a layer of foam board in at the end here, and the reason for that is it's just to give it a bit of height, so that I'm not wasting a lot of the cinders, and it gives it a bulk, and it'll make it, when I do the next stage, which will be covering it up with cinders, it'll be the same level pretty much as the blocks, but as I say, won't waste too much. So I'll come back when I've done a bit more. Well, as you can see, I've now ballasted or cindered up to the blocks, and that's all dried, and I'm quite happy with that. I've put the building there. I'm not sure whether it's going to stay there or not, but I had intended to do a little bit more before I published the video, but to be perfectly honest, it's going to be a little bit longer than I want it to be for a single video, so I think I'm going to call this part 1 and continue it when I've done a bit more. Problem is I'm waiting on lots of things. I want some real coal, I want some sleepers to make a framework, or some wood to make a framework. I've got to ballast the track there, but that means painting the buffers, the sleepers, the buffers at the end. Not sure you can see them from, yeah, before I can do that, because otherwise I won't be able to do that, ballasting right up to them without causing a right mess. So I also need some more fine ballast cinders to do before I do a lot more anyway. So as I said before, rather than just keep adding bits and pieces, I'll call this part 1 and continue as a separate video later when I've got some more supplies and I've got the time to do a bit more. So thanks for watching, and obviously any comments or things you want to say or ask, please do, and subscribe if you wish. But for the time being, bye for now.